Good evening. Today is the 23rd day of January 2017, and we continue our series, Explorations in Savitri, with our brother Alok. Namaskar. We are at the very last line on page 193. In Book 2, the Book of the Traveler of the Worlds, Canto 6, the Kingdoms and Godheads of the Greater Life.
So as we have seen in the last few lines, and some more lines will come along with a similar note. Shobinda is comparing life to music. Now, very often we see that life is music and people write about it. But what kind of music? So two things stand out that in the music of life, there is a seeking, a cry, seeking for bliss, for something it has lost. And it never quite ultimately finds it. It seems to find it, lose it, find it, lose it. And ultimately, it is searching for something which it doesn't quite get at the end of it. So there is in it a mixed sweet sadness. That's the, I won't say beauty, but well, in a certain sense, the beauty of life.
Certainly one of the charms.
One of the charms of life. A lot of people like it to be like this. But life is meant to be, the music of life is meant to be a griefless music. It should be a music which ascends and merges into an infinity of joy.
From griefless spheres.
From griefless spheres. But here it's a mixed train.
Yes.
As someone said, Mother recounts that, there are different explanations why there is sorrow in the world. So from an artist perspective, Mother says, someone said that, there must be shadows. Without shadows, the forms don't become prominent. So that's one point of view, that life should be a mixed train. But, well, it's easy to philosophize it, but very difficult when you are going through it. It's all right when the strain is a happy note, but when you go through the sad note. But at the end of all this, there is a trail of sweetness which somewhere lingers. Even the sadness, when we convert it many years back, people remember it. Of course, there are some events which are very hard to forget without remembering the touch of sadness. But many of the events of life eventually transmute into some kind of a sweetness with a lingering sadness inside it. That's how it is.
Yes.
And perhaps that must have inspired the great poet to say our sweetest songs are those that, tell of the saddest tales. So, Shobinda is now describing as the music of life climbs higher and higher onto its ultimate steps.
And we'll hear so many terms
Yes, which are musical.
which are musical.
Transmuted are past sufferings, memories, as you rise up higher and higher in the scale of life, into an old sadness's sweet escaping trail. So it's a texture, it's a taste, whatever we may say, that life eventually leaves. They say that a baby is born without wrinkles. And as you grow older and older, wrinkles come up. It's very interesting. On one side, wrinkles are a sign that you have gone through much in life. But very strangely, when wrinkles come in an old face, it also adds its own charm and beauty and grace to the face. I mean, of course, I have seen Amalda's face, which remained like a baby's for a very, very long time. But that's an exception. But also they have their own charm, eyes which have been, they show that, somebody has gone through a lot. And then there is wisdom in such a countenance. There is wisdom which comes out and says, it's okay, all will be fine.
There's hope for me to get better looking.
You are already, by grace, quite handsome, I'm sure.
No.
Turned are her tears to gems of diamond pain. See how Sri Aurobindo compares it.
Yeah.
So they are pain, they carry pain in their core,
Gems.
and yet they have become gems of diamond pain. Her sorrow into a magic crown of song. I have seen this. I have met some people, elderly people. They have just gone through life. It's not that they have been great yogis, or yoga is a different thing altogether, but they have just gone through life very consciously, faced it with all its, ups and downs and trials and travails. And I have seen when, you go to them, not personally, but I have seen it happen, with some problems or difficulties, they have a smile on their face and they say, don't worry, everything will be fine. And there is tremendous power in it. But they have just gone through life. And when they say this, there is at once an assurance, a sort of certitude. That's how it will be. That's wisdom.
There's an interesting poem of A.E., the man to the angel, in which he says, I am myriad years of pain closer to the fount of life. No. And then he says to the angel, to the God, when to the God to whom you bow, he said, tenderest the lips upon my brow.
Wow.
It's not quite exact, but it's close. In other words, the divine kisses him through all his pain and life experience.
Yes. Brief are her snatches of felicity that touch the surface, then escape or die. So life gives all of us its share of joy, but too brief the joy and too sudden the departure. Still there is, life doesn't lose hope. It's very interesting. For years I used to see in Bangalore a leper on the wayside. He was sitting early morning when I would go to Bhavan for daily service. I would see him lying in a corner with just a little. And Bangalore can be pretty cold. All through the season, it maintains more or less a equal temperature and generally on the cooler side. And he would have a very thin sheet over his. And I would wonder that, what inspires him to live? This was my constant question. He's on the roadside, he's having leprosy, he doesn't know whether he'll have the next meal or not. But there is such a strong will to live, a joy to live. Somehow it is there. It's inbuilt in the secret founts of life. A lost remembrance echoes in her depths. A deathless longing is hers, a veiled self's call. This veiled self is, of course, the soul within, which awaits its hour. A prisoner in the mortal's limiting world. A spirit wounded by life sobs in her breast. A cherished suffering is her deepest cry. Cherished suffering. People don't want to lose that lesson. Also because it carried its own strain of joy at some point of time, even though it has left an aftertaste of suffering.
And some lines down, what you just said, a joy to live, will come in these fantastic lines.
Yes.
Oh.
A wanderer on forlorn, despairing routes. Along the roads of sound, a frustrate voice, forsaken, cries to a forgotten bliss. All cry of life, ultimately, is for something it has lost. It's trying to find, recapture, discover, and going here and there. It has created many images, many notes, and yet it is not finding that right note, that one note. It's missing that one joy for which it would give everything away.
Yes.
It's seeking for that forgotten bliss. And that's why one suffers.
We just had lost remembrance.
Yes.
And then forgotten bliss.
And that's the reason why there is suffering because we are never quite satisfied, and we can never be quite satisfied because we have that deep inside somewhere an experience of bliss, a home of bliss. It's like a home, you always remember your mother's food, however it may be. And you may go all over the world, but you come back and you long for that. And the moment you taste it, it's bliss. So it's the same thing, that divine touch which is lost. Astray in the echo caverns of desire, it wanders into these caverns. It guards the phantoms of a soul's dead hopes. You see, even desire, ultimately the hope of the soul is the infinite. Infinite truth, bliss, love, peace. But till the soul will awake and realize these dreams, they have to be guarded somewhere. They have to be kept alive. Dead matter cannot straightaway aspire. So life guards these. Initially, obviously, through illusion one moves. That's why in Sri Aurobindo's ascending triangle, you have the aspiration in matter through light, life, and love. These are the three means through which we aspire. And of course, obviously, we go through illusions, but it's kept alive in the process. And keeps alive the voice of perished things, or lingers upon sweet and errant notes, hunting for pleasure in the heart of pain. It's almost the inverse, but equally powerful, like that line, a world of bliss in a heart of bliss in a world of pain. But here we have hunting for pleasure in the heart of pain. So we discover the heart of bliss in a world of pain when we touch, or we are blessed, or we have the grace of the Divine Mother. Otherwise, life is hunting. Maybe I'll get it here. It knows it'll be painful. It has experienced it'll be painful. Still, it has the hope which is alive. A fateful hand has touched the cosmic chords, and the intrusion of a troubled strain covered the inner music's hidden key that guides unheard the surface cadences. You see, in every music, there is the bass,
Yes.
hidden key, which actually is a guide. It tunes the surface cadences. It's very important, but nobody notices it.
And yet the cosmic chords
Yeah.
touched it. The fateful hand has touched them.
Yes. So if we go within, we'll hear this music. It's very interesting. When you hear mother's music, you'll feel some of these notes, which you find nowhere. At least with my little knowledge of music, I haven't found, except in maybe one or two of Sunil Das music. Otherwise, you don't find these notes. Where are they coming from? It's not about the ragas, but about those notes. It's strange. Sometimes they, stay for quite a while with that tremor inside. So it's wonderful. So that's what one is looking for. A fateful hand has touched the cosmic chords, and the intrusion of a troubled strain covers the inner music's hidden key that guides unheard the surface cadences. And it also reminds us why, it takes long preparation before we can feel that bliss. Because for a long time, the instrument has to be tuned. All great musicians spend a lot of time in tuning the instrument. And then they play the music. Because otherwise, there'll be troubled strains which will come in and spoil it. So the tuning of the instrument is a long process. And now comes these wonderful lines.
Yes.
Yet is it joy to live and to create. You see, this is the beauty of Sri Aurobindo, that yes, there are illusions, but these illusions have to be transformed into their real value. He does not take the route of despair, does not allow us to become cynics, because we see the world around, people tend to despair and become cynics. So he's also pointing out that don't draw a one-sided conclusion, because there is joy in everything, every experience of life.
And for me, The great delight always in Savitri is that a moment comes when we may be in a certain canto, but he lifts us up
This itself is
into another
music.
world.
You see, look, like, we are reading about all these illusions and how, life can display number of colors and images, but that one thing is missing. And yet suddenly he lifts everything to a great height.
Yes.
So,
And
yet is it joy to live and to create, and joy to love and labor, though all fails. Powerful. And joy to seek, though all we find deceives. And all on which we lean betrays our trust. Yet something in its depths was worth the pain. It's marvelous lines. One should not give up this seeking. One should not become a Mayavadi, an illusionist, and become a cynic and make a very sad philosophy out of life. There is an instinct in life which continues to seek. A passionate memory haunts with ecstasy's fire. Even grief has joy hidden beneath its roots. See, actually, it is so true, even psychologically and practically. When people go through grief, they try to run away from grief. So, one of the advices is go and do window shopping, divert your mind, do this, do that. And temporarily, one gets over and maybe it goes into the background, but it's never quite lost. It surfaces. So, Mother gives a very different remedy. She says, whenever a deep suffering tears your heart, neither try to escape from it nor cherish it, but go deep into it. And if you go deep into it, you will discover a state of oneness, where there is no pain, no grief, but only joy. And she says it at two places. One place she says in the context of when, she is separated from those who loved her and whom she obviously cared for, when she moves away from France. So this is one of her prayers. And she says, I suffered the suffering of those. They must have suffered when Mother would have gone. Of course, she is not known as Mother, but we can imagine what love and sweetness and to be near her and how fortunate they must have been coming to her meetings and when she has moved away. And then she says, at one level, this suffering is puerile, childish. But at another level, in ignorance, this very attachment is the way that life tries to build the oneness it has lost. So what is the remedy? Go deep and discover that oneness. Then you don't feel the pain of separation. Because actually, one is never separated. This is the truth we don't know. So one suffers, one feels, I'm away. But when you go deep into that, you reclaim it. So suffering is actually because we want that to reclaim that oneness. That's why we suffer. We are instinct with it. But we don't know where to find it. So people turn from one to another and, one illusion to another and suffer more and more. They should go deep. So even grief has joy hidden beneath its roots. If you go deep inside the roots, you will discover that oneness.
And he picks this up in Savitri when she has to leave the palace and her parents.
Yes, absolutely.
It's a very beautiful passage.
This is a, very nice story from Indian thought, which is about Krishna. So when Krishna has gone away, then all the gopis, they are crying. They miss him. They don't. And then one of Krishna's friends, Uddhav, he comes to console them. He says, they are all foolish. I will give them the true knowledge, which will make them quiet. So Krishna says, go and give them the knowledge. It's his way of, humbling the great friend and disciple. So he comes and tries to tell them that, look, you don't know Krishna. Krishna is Brahman and etc. It's all intellectual knowledge. There is the difference between intellectual knowledge and the real. So they say, we don't know all that, but we just love him. What do we do? So he says, no, you must learn to concentrate. He says, but our being is already concentrated on Krishna. We can't concentrate on anyone else. So he says, okay, you must learn to hold your life through pranayam. He says, we have given our prana to Krishna. We have nothing left to do pranayam. So eventually, he doesn't know what to do. So they tell him that, look, you explain all this to Radha. She only can understand all your complex philosophies. We are simple people, we just love Krishna. So they take him to Radha, and Radha is sitting in a very quiet, meditative mood. And he starts consoling Radha that, you know what, I can understand that the loss of Krishna has stunned you into silence. But I must tell you that you are mistaken, etc., etc. And Radha says, but who has lost Krishna? He is everywhere. He is always with me. I am so filled with him that I don't have space for grief. So he comes back and discovers the great secret of oneness through love. So again, she has gone through, Radha has gone through the same experience as others, but she has learned to go deep inside and discover the space where Krishna always is. And I think this story is also significant for all of us,
Yes.
who are, who outwardly miss the mother. And there are some people who foolishly go from here to there, run after gurus, even want to find gurus in integral yoga, etc., etc. Well, but what we have to do is to go deep within. Their mother is. And if we can't find her there, then the whole yoga collapses. There is no sense in anything. The yoga stands on the fact that the Divine Mother is in our heart. And whether we see her physically or not, we have to still find her here. And if we cannot find her here, hundreds of gurus cannot replace that one moment, magical moment of contact with the Mother. So, this story.
I remember when Mary Helen was in her last stages. I had left my Savitri downstairs. And she said, oh, my copy is there. You can get it. I bring the copy to her and I open it. And there's Mother's note to her, fear not, I am with you.
Look at it. Then grief passes away,
Yeah.
For nothing is truly vain the one has made. So, everything can be turned into an entry point into the infinite. At one place, Mother says, there are many windows opening on the infinite, but we just pass by without looking through them. That's why in the Gita, the first chapter is called Arjuna's Vishad Yoga. Vishad is grief. How can grief become yoga? Simply because in grief, he turns to the divine. So it becomes yoga. Vishad Yoga. In our defeated hearts, God's strength survives. Marvelous. And victory's star still lights our desperate road. Our death is made a passage to new worlds. So we should never give up. Even if we were to die trying something in which we fail, it yet sets the note, the right note for the next life. So we should not worry that, one lifetime is not all. Even if we perish, let's perish heroically. But why think of perishing? None perishes who has turned to the divine. Yet, till the last breath, one must strive. There are people who give up and they don't realize that maybe they were very close to the moment of realization. So, here are these lines to remind us, even death is nothing but a passage to new worlds. This to life's music gives its anthem swell. Oh, see. Now comes the music that uplifts. And see, these lines itself is like an anthem swell.
Yes.
To all she lends the glory of her voice. Heaven's raptures whisper to her heart and pass. Time to time, we hear it. Earth's transient yearnings cry from her lips and fade. Alone the God-given hymn escapes her art. This is the tragedy of life. The tragedy of life is not one didn't succeed in some outer endeavor, etc., etc. But the only tragedy is, as the mother says, to die without finding your soul. And still she says it is so common that most people don't even regard it as tragedy. They complain about 100 things they didn't get. They didn't get money, they didn't have a job, they didn't have maybe this or that, or a person, or etc., etc. But they didn't get their soul. Nobody thinks about it.
A life consecrated to the divine is the only life,
Only life
worth living.
worth living. Alone the God-given hymn escapes her art that came with her from her spiritual home. This is something very interesting. When children are small, the first word they, at least in the Indian context, they learn is ma. They don't learn om, they learn ma. The first relation they relate with is ma. And I had read a very beautiful story about, it's obviously an imaginary dialogue between two children, who are babies in the womb. So one of them is saying, I don't know, there's a lot of cramps which are coming, because it's time for delivery. So they says, yeah, but I guess it must be all in the game, must be something good. He says, I don't know, I'm very safe in my cozy corner. I'm very scared of going out. So the other says, why you are scared? Surely there will be somebody to take care, just as we are taking care here. So the one says, but how do you say that? I don't know, I'm very scared. He says, but time to time I hear some whispers, as if some mother is calling me with lot of love. And I'm sure when I go out, she will hold me in her hands. Very touching story. Life in ignorance. You hear the whispers, but don't quite completely experience it. Alone the God-given hymn escapes her art that came with her from her spiritual home, but stopped halfway and failed. A silent word, awake in some deep pause of waiting worlds, a murmur suspended in eternity's hush. To recapture that note, we need to go between the spaces of thought, between the spaces of acts, between the spaces of life, and as the famous poet says, learn to stand and stare. Yes. But now in those spaces we have the smartphone filling these spaces of our life. Unfortunately, it has taken away that space. But no breath comes from the supernal peace. A sumptuous interlude occupies the ear. And the heart listens, and the soul consents. An evanescent music it repeats, wasting on transience. Time's eternity. Time's eternity. It's endless. We can waste. Lives we can waste. Nature says, all right, it loves to, if somebody wastes time, nature is very happy. He says, I have this toy which will last for now many lives. Wasting on transience. Till we discover the one for whom our lives are made. What is those lines? All that denies must be torn out and slain, yes, and crushed the many longings for whose sake we lose the one for whom our lives are made. So, we miss out on that. A tremolo of the voices of the hours. What I understand from tremolo is like, a musical strain which lingers, tremors.
Exactly.
Right?
Yes, correct.
So tremolo of the voices of the hours. Oblivious screens the high intended theme. The self-embodying spirit came to play on the vast clavichord of nature force. So, life strains this passage in my own way as I understand. Well, events happen that leave a sad strain, things good, things bad, things pleasant, things painful. And then for a long time, there is a tremor of these events, their music, their strain, which lingers and we, muse upon it. And that's how it goes on till another surface note comes in.
But it screens the theme.
It screens, precisely, because, instead of flowing with that, if we could, okay, fine. Now let me go within and seek in the depths. But, it screens that inner one. Again and again it comes that, these surface cadences screen. Only a mighty murmur here and there of the eternal word, the blissful voice or beauty's touch transfiguring heart and sense. We do get touches, but alas, they're so few and so far in between. A wandering splendor and a mystic cry recalls the strength and sweetness heard no more. Then awakens the mystic cry. Recalling, I mean, it's there inside, but it wants to once again experience the touch of the all beautiful and the blissful. We can just read a few more lines, though this passage ends here.
It does.
But something starts which connects, because Ashupati has not now gone full circle. You see, this is the cosmic ignorance in which he is wandering. So at each plane, there is a cosmic physical, there is the cosmic vital, and this is the cosmic mind. Now here it is the cosmic vital. So he has seen all the boundaries. It's like a huge magic circle, and yet there is no gap. There is nothing which allows him to go further. He has to find that rent in the vault. He is looking for a means to pass into the beyond, which eventually will come in Canto 14. Mm-hmm. But at this point, he is not able to find. So, you can reach that point and once again you will come back and move in this circle. So, there comes this line, here is the gap, here stops or sinks life's force. So, we'll see in Canto 7 and 8, this sinking of the life force. You have to go through that experience. It's like a purgatory, descent into night. And that would also explain why after everything so-called beautiful and good in life, one has to go through the purgatory.
None can enter
heaven who has not passed through hell. So it comes logically after this greater life. Because he's trying to see if there is a gap there, if there is a opening into the beyond. But he doesn't find it. Here sinks life's force. This is the limit. This deficit paupers the magician's skill. It can create everything except the one.
Paupers it.
Paupers. So everything is there, but it is its poverty in richness.
Yes.
There are so many beautiful stories. This want makes all the rest seem thin and bare. Someone came, a mystic, to the court of King Akbar. And Akbar at that point of time was not yet in the court, and they said, no, if you want something, you go to him, he is in his prayer hall. And they see the great Mughal emperor praying to the Lord. And the mystic sees him and waits till Akbar comes up and says, say what you want. He said, now I don't want from you. I have seen that you are also asking from someone else. I'm sure I can also ask. I don't need you anymore. What a short, beautiful story. Yes. That, I am asking from you, you are asking from him. I can also ask him directly. This deficit paupers the magician's skill. This want makes all the rest seem thin and bare. There is another story about Vivekananda like this. He had a very difficult life. Young age, very capable. He could have had a successful career, but left everything and took to sannyas. But his mother and sister suffered a lot because of want of money. So he told once Sri Ramakrishna that, there is so much problem, there is no money, this, that. You have a hotline with Goddess Kali. Why don't you ask her to send some money to my home? So he says, you also have a hotline. Now I have connected you. You go and ask her. So he goes inside, stands before the world mother, comes out. So Ramakrishna, so you asked her? He says, no, I couldn't ask. He says, you are a fool. Go inside and ask. Again he comes out. 3 times, but he couldn't ask. He said, what are you doing going inside and coming out? He says, whenever I go in front of her, then I think, what am I asking for? So I end up asking for jnana, wisdom, knowledge, bhakti, love and devotion, and vairagya, detachment from this kind of illusory life.
I don't know if I told you the story of Temi's father taking her to Raman Maharshi.
No, I don't know.
He said, prepare all your questions. He'll be sitting on the dais. He'll answer everything you say. She enters there, they all sit, and they go out. Father says, what happened? She said, there was nothing to ask.
Yes. So beautiful.
What can one ask in
What
that,
can
in
one
that
ask
piece?
in that piece, that's right. A half sight draws the horizon of her acts. Her depths remember what she came to do. But the mind has forgotten, or the heart mistakes. In nature's endless lines is lost the God. Endless lines. The whole creation is an act of God. Yet the paradox is when we are lost in the surfaces of creation, we miss the one who resides in the depths. In knowledge, to sum up omniscience, this is what life wants. So we gather bits and pieces of information from here, there, everywhere, so that we may ultimately arrive at knowledge. But we don't. But this is the urge in knowledge to sum up omniscience, in action to erect the omnipotent. To create her creator here was her heart's conceit. Scientists believe that they are able to do it. To invade the cosmic scene with utter God. That's why, one remembers these lines, very chastening lines, very humbling lines. When one goes to mother's room, you are trying to correct what the creator is doing before entering a room. This must have been a universal melody. I have seen. Still it persists. A lot of people, they get into this mode that instead of correcting themselves, they start correcting everyone. The creator knows well what the game is about. People went to complain to mother. Once somebody said, mother, ashram eggs, which at one point had stamps on that they are from the ashram, are being sold in the market. Are you aware of it? He said, I am aware of it and much more. That's it. That's the end of the story. When another person complained that, mother, I saw through the open door someone in such and such a situation. Mother said, you have seen it. Next time, never turn and look towards that door. Who asked you to look towards the door and see what's happening? So you see, you want to correct what the creator is doing. He only knows this cry of life and its, how it is lost. And he only knows how to bring it back because he knows he has all the strings. And he knows through suffering, through joy, through everything, he ultimately pulls us towards him. And last few lines. Toiling to transform the still far absolute. See, these are lines with such irony and humor in it. To create her creator here was her heart's conceit. Then toiling to transform the still far absolute. To fill him with all the colors as if by doing it, but the absolute already contains all this, but in a much more grand way. Into an all-fulfilling epiphany. Into an utterance of the ineffable, she would bring the glory here of the Absolute's force. Change poise into creation's rhythmic swing. Marry with a sky of calm, a sea of bliss. This is the task. And no doubt it's a wonderful task, a laudable task, a difficult task, a challenging task. But to do this, she must first discover the one who is the infinite. It cannot be done without that. This is the main catch. The aspiration is right, but the method is wrong. The longing and the seeking is right, but the place where one is looking for it is wrong. You can't get diamond in a vegetable market. It has to search for it deep inside, discover the one, then it can create. So we'll stop here and meet next Monday.
Yes, next Monday.